Formula One promised closer racing in 2026. So why is one team over half a second faster per lap? One driver disappears into the distance, and another crashes his way through the field. And we're being told this is thrilling? Right. So, let's talk about the China Sprint. Well, what is there to say? The China Sprint went almost exactly as expected. Smug George and Kimi out-qualified the rest of the field, locking out the front row by over half a second. Yes, half a second. The Ferraro Stallions actually outdrove them off the start, which, for a brief moment, gave us hope. Smug George toyed with them for a few laps and then, like he'd remembered he had somewhere else to be, he disappeared into the distance. And while the sheep commentary described it as excellent racecraft, brilliant racing, it's giving 2020 vibes. Again. Quick Papaya disclaimer. This episode contains satire, sarcasm, and rising suspicion levels. If you're after completely neutral commentary, this may not be your paddock. Ni hao. Papaya Koala here. Yes, I've returned as the panda to what is shaping up to be a predictably predictable season. Because this isn't just dominance anymore. It's dominance with a noticeable lack of explanation. One practice session, that's all the teams had, and yet everything looked very familiar. Arrows comfortably quickest, Papaya's there but not quite, Stallions opportunistic and optimistic. Qualifying shuffled things slightly, with the Stallions splitting the Papayas. But the real story wasn't the order. It was the gap. Again. And then the real surprise, the Alpas, from the back of the field to the front of the midfield. Now that is a very impressive turnaround, almost as if certain information, data, or performance may have recently been made available by the Arrows. Because interestingly, not all Arrow customer teams appear to be enjoying the same spicy engine experience. Some look competitive, others look confused. Lights out, and Lando actually gets a rare clean launch. Yep, he nailed the start for once. Up into P2 for approximately one corner, before Lewis Legend goes straight up the inside and basically says, "Not today, thank you very much." Kimi, bad start, bogged down, and then tries to fix it immediately by forcing his way through the field. Result? Bang, smash, contact with Isaac. Now this one wasn't even subtle. It wasn't even his usual dirty signature move. It was just unnecessary. A faster car trying to bully its way through slower traffic, when patience would have achieved the same result within a lap or two, without the argy-bargy. And for once the stewards noticed. 10-second penalty. Correct decision. Finally. But this opens a bigger conversation, because Formula One has a memory problem. When a young Max made mistakes early in his career, he was given the very unimaginative nickname Crash Tappin'. 17 years old, in a backmarker, driving well beyond the limits of his car, earning the most points for a Toro driver in a year, finishing 12, well ahead of his more senior teammate, the lovely Carlos Hare. A few crashes, sure, but mostly not his fault. Looking at you, Ocon. Now compare that to Kimi, older, in a front-running car, more incidents in a shorter time. Almost double, in fact. And unlike Max, the majority of Kimi's crashes were self-inflicted. And also unlike Max, several of Kimi's crashes were responsible for changing the outcome of the whole championship. Let that sink in. Without Kimi's crashes, Max or Oscar would now be champ, not Lando. And yet for Kimi, no stupid nickname, no narrative, no media pile-on. So the question becomes, why the difference? Because this isn't random. Kimi has developed a pattern, a signature move. A specific move under braking that shifts position late. It forces the other driver into self-preservation. It relies on the other driver to choose between backing out and losing position or getting crashed out of the race. There is a reason why this dirty move is prohibited. Now here's the critical detail. These moves almost always happen in the braking zone, well before the apex, which means the rule being applied is wrong. It's not about who is ahead at the apex. It's about moving under braking and forcing another driver offline or into evasive action, which is not allowed. And yet, Kimi keeps doing it over and over, and still this keeps being overlooked. And worse, his victims are the ones who are often penalized, with the stewards incorrectly applying the wrong rule. We're seeing this track bully behavior repeated frequently against Oscar in Miami, Canada, and yes, Brazil, against Max in Austria, against Charles in Zandvoort, Brazil, against Carlos and Yuki, and now Isaac. Different racing incidents, same approach, same expectation. They'll get out of my way. And usually, they do, because they don't want their race ruined. This isn't a young driver being brave or racing hard. This is a banned maneuver. And when it keeps happening, without consistent penalties, it stops looking like coincidence and more like a dirty, and yes, prohibited signature move that continues to escape the required punishment. So Kimi gets 10 seconds, which would normally be significant, except when your car is almost a second per lap faster than everyone else, it becomes nothing more than a temporary inconvenience. Within a few laps, he casually drives back through the field, back in contention. Like the penalty was more of a strongly worded suggestion, like nothing happened. It's giving Silverstone 21 vibes when another Arrow driver received a patently inadequate penalty. We even got a moment, briefly, where Smug George appeared to be battling Lewis. And by battle, we mean pretended just long enough to make it look interesting. And for a second you think, okay, here we go. And then Smug George just leaves. Again. Almost like the battle existed purely to demonstrate that one could exist, before proving that it actually couldn't. And in the end, we got exactly what we expected. Smug George wins by half a lap, Stallion's best of the rest, Papaya's split. And Kimi artificially out of position only due to penalty plus safety car. After the race, Smug George desperately tried to convince us all that it was exciting, in a way that suggests he might have manufactured it. That was such an exciting race. Did you see what I did? I made an excitement. Don't you think it was exciting? No, George, we don't believe that. F1's own headlines declared, "George wins thrilling China sprint!" No, Sheep Team, we don't believe you either. Let's be clear, it wasn't thrilling. And calling it thrilling doesn't make it so. And no amount of commentary and creative headlines are going to convince fans otherwise. We're being told, it's competitive, it's close, it's driver excellence. But what we're seeing is a significant performance advantage, not equally distributed. Not shared with customer teams. Not being addressed until July? Yes, July. And this is where it starts to feel familiar. We've seen this before with the Arrows. An unfair 2-year heads-up on regulations, total turbo hybrid era dominance, regulatory grey areas, prohibited systems allowed until they weren't. Remember DAS? Now, a performance characteristic related to thermal compression advantages that clearly benefits one team is not mirrored by customer teams, has been openly declared clearly against the rules by the other teams, and somehow remains unaddressed. Because realistically, there are ways to manage this quickly in ways that won't upset Audi. But that's a conversation for another video. They could simply add weight to the Arrows, close the gap, bring it back to tenths, or better yet, hundredths, like the performance gap has been for the last 4 years. Instead of this snooze fest parade, problem managed, racing restored, fans retained. And if the Arrows want to lose that additional weight, then all they have to do is stop withholding. Because right now, this isn't a fight, this isn't racing, it's a demonstration. A parade with occasional incidents, and fans are noticing loudly. So what do you think? Should the FIA wait until July or step in now and save the season? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this completely balanced, not at all suspicious sprint analysis, like, subscribe, and join the Koala crew. Because here, we don't just watch Formula One, we monitor it suspiciously. Just raise one eyebrow suspiciously. I need you to look suspicious, not surprised. Haha, what was that? I need suspicious, not concerned. Really? Okay, I guess this isn't going to work. Close enough.